But right now, let's talk some Pac-12 football. Big college football day for us here on the show. As we got to the East Bay and Jordan Watkins, who joins us right now, network announcer for the Pac-12, as well as he does some writing for the Falcoholic covering the Atlanta Falcons. But guy who played at Stanford, Jordan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. As we start off, just looking at the odds here with where USC is at. We were talking Big 12 earlier, and we talked about, all right, is this finally the year Texas gets over the hump? In a similar vein, is this finally the year that for Caleb Williams at quarterback, it all comes together and USC gets to the promised land?
No, first and foremost, thanks y'all for having me. And no, it's a great question. I feel like it really could be that year for USC. The main reason is because of everything they did at the line of scrimmage. You think about what they did last year, right? It was flashy, great offense, Caleb Williams winning the Heisman. You had guys like Jordan Addison on the outside. But they really did a good job on offense and defense, emphasizing getting better at that line of scrimmage. So I'm really excited about that. And there's no reason to think defensively they won't continue to take the ball away like they did last year. Mason Cobb also comes in from Oklahoma State, phenomenal Big 12 linebacker, so I think he's going to help too. So I think with those additions and also what they bring back, it really could be that year for the Trojans.
Jordan, Utah won the league last year. They're picked fourth at 6-1 to win the conference this year. I'm a little bit surprised, even though Cam Rising coming off the torn ACL, Whittingham, for my money, is the best coach in the league. How do you see the Utes this year in conference?
Yeah, the way I look at Utah is I was saying this to someone the other day. Whenever you have a program that is always consistent year in and year out, you know what their identity is. You can't rule them out. And for Utah, that's exactly who they are. I know I believe Dalton Kincaid left last year, was one of those big targets for Utah, but Brant Keithy's going to be back. He's going to be instantly one of the best tight ends you have in the whole conference. And of course, we all know what defensively the identity for Utah is going to bring. So the big question for them is obviously going to be, can they avoid that one big loss that they usually have at one point of the year, right? They had that loss against against UCLA late in the season that kind of derailed things in terms of a CFP push. But that's a big question for them. Otherwise, they're going to be right there again.
Yeah, Ben, 8 starters returning on the Utah defense
this year. Yeah, 6-1, one of the 4 teams getting a lot of buzz atop that Pac-12 conference. Yeah, Jordan, you're someone who you played on the D-line in the trenches for Stanford, and it's something that, at least for my money, and Amal, we've talked about this before, where offensive line, defensive line play, among the most underrated when it comes to the betting market, things that just do not get taken into consideration enough. When you examine the scope right now of the conference, what is a front 7 and O-line combo that really stands out to you more than most and more that people are really giving a particular team credit for, if there is one here heading into the season?
So first and foremost, I'm so happy that you gave the line of scrimmage the credit.
Don't worry, I got you covered, man.
I appreciate it because it's like you said, everyone wants to look at the fancy names, the quarterbacks, receivers, or maybe safeties, DBs. But I think the one team, and this is why they're a sleeper for a lot of people, is Oregon State. You look at their brand of football, and again, like the same thing I talked about with Utah is the same thing I'll say with Oregon State in terms of the consistency, and you know what the identity is. Oregon State has the identity now of being a very physical, smash-mouth football team. You look at the run game that they had last year, and also the big names they had. I mean, the big guys that they had on the defensive line as well, and who are returning. Also, it looks like they're going to have a pretty good pass attack, whether it's DJU coming in from Clemson, or they had the big-time recruit coming in, a quarterback as well. So they have a quarterback probably that they haven't had in a while, especially in this Jonathan Smith era. So I think that's going to be that team that surprises people. And again, it's because of their physical play, just like how we used to be physical with a lot of teams and kind of, quote-unquote, snuck up on them, about a decade ago.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I think Jonathan Smith's done a tremendous job staying on this. Jordan, do you think Jonathan Smith, because he played at Oregon State and it gets some opportunities elsewhere, will he stay in Corvallis or eventually look to make a move? Because concerns with realignment, Oregon State and Washington State are 2 programs that could get left out in the cold.
No, it's a tough question. And honestly, when it comes to realignment, I'll just give you the answer I give for any question. Shrug shoulders, hands up. I don't know, right? Because it's something different by the day, right? But no, I think it's like what you said. And you look at a lot of other people and a lot of other coaches in this conference, when you have someone who is all about that school or all about the conference, it makes me a little hesitant to say that they'd leave anywhere, right? Just Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. Even if you heard what Chip Kelly said at Media Day about UCLA leaving, like it's obvious, like he loves the Pac-12. Obviously, was at Oregon for a long time before that. You know, my head coach David Shaw at Stanford, he had all the NFL rumors for years and never wanted to leave. So it really does show and say something about how a lot of these coaches think about this conference, but also their respective schools as well.
Jordan, you brought up a great point. You played for David Shaw at Stanford, and this is an intriguing situation where you were in, where if your head coach was leaving, at other programs, players would look to leave. At Stanford, you're going there. Look, if you can make it to the NFL, it's great, but you're coming there for the academic opportunity and what it could bring you the rest of your life. Yeah, how is it different when you look at maybe friends of yours that played elsewhere? If a coach is potentially leaving, you always see a mass exodus, whereas a Stanford or maybe Northwestern or Duke, you won't see that as much.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny you bring that up because a lot of people were concerned or worried of if that was going to happen at Stanford this past offseason, right? You know, David Shaw goes out, Troy Taylor comes in. But I think the thing about it, too, is with the new transfer portal, you know, well, I guess not new, but, you know, it came in after I was done playing. You look at the mass exodus or the changes from year to year, even if you have the same coach. I think that has changed so much to where it doesn't even have, like I said, it doesn't have to be the fact that you have a new head coach or maybe it's a position coach that you really, really had a good relationship with that moves on somewhere. This the whole dynamic of roster retention and also roster building has changed so much that when I look at it and when I answer the question, it's almost hard to just pin it on just, well, if your head coach leaves, then what? Because, I mean, you know, you name some really good, really great schools. And there's some others there, too, where, you know, maybe it's not the overall reputation of the school, but maybe it's a certain department that you're there for or whatnot, what have you. It's still there, regardless of your coach is there or not. But because of the relationship and certain philosophies that have changed, you still might look to leave.
Sure. Again, we're talking Pac-12 football right now, leading into the 2023 season. Just had the media days here in Las Vegas with Jordan Watkins. You can follow at Big75Fella on Twitter. The thing we always tend to do, Jordan, as bettors, we talk up a lot of teams, get excited about win totals, and then we tend to forget there's only so many wins to go around, especially in a conference where there are a lot of sleeper teams and hype teams this year. So what is a team or two you look at in the Pac-12 and go, this might be an underachieving type of season given the strength of the rest of the league?
That's a good question, and I think the way I have to look at it is you have to look at the top of the conference, right? I know we talked about USC and Utah being right there, maybe being college football playoff finalists, but when you look at that next group, right? And I only want to say next group down because I think there's about four teams in the Pac-12 that are kind of in that same group. But you look at the Washingtons and you look at Oregon. Look at schedules because a lot of times, a lot of this comes down to matchups and not only just the matchups, but when do you play certain teams? And for a lot of the teams that are at the top of the Pac-12 or expect to be at the top of the Pac-12, the question is, can you get the defense figured out, right? We talked about that with USC. We know Utah's going to be there. Now, here's the question. Can Dan Lanning get Oregon to that Georgia reputation, right? Or at least start going to that level, right, where he came from, where he won national championships with Kirby Smart. In Washington also, they have some of that same questions as well. So in this league where it's going to be so talented, it's the best quarterback league from top to bottom in the country, in my opinion. Someone's going to knock somebody else off. It's just a matter of how things go. And so I look at one of those two teams that might not finish as well as people expect. But again, it's not because I don't think they're going to be good. It's because I think this conference is really good.
And it's both teams, 9.5 win totals, but the juice is to the under, and it's going to take a Herculean effort to get to 10 wins.
Yeah, you know, you brought up a good point with Dan Lanning there. The Oregon's got to improve their pass defense. They were horrific last year. They were near the bottom or dead last in college football. Washington, I still have some concerns about them, and Michael Penix. And Jordan, I want to get your thoughts on Penix in this offense. I think they probably arguably the second or third best receiving core in college football. Rome Odunze, he's an absolute dude. They've got some guys there, but can this team defensively and can the running game also, can Penix perform? When they went to UCLA last year at the Rose Bowl, they were completely outclassed. I mean, look, Penix put up numbers against other teams, but now you're playing elite competition. Can you do the same thing?
Isn't it funny to think about Washington, especially the last decade plus, and have questions about their defense?
Crazy.
And I say that because it's just so funny because when you look at it, Washington always has been known. All right, the NFL draft's coming up, and there's going to be at least one or two corners or another DB that's picked in the first round from Washington. That's just how it's been, going all the way back even to Marcus Trufant and his cousin Desmond. Marcus obviously played for my Atlanta Falcons, but it's one of those things. Like I said, obviously they're going to have a really good they're going to have a really good pass rush. They might have arguably a top 3 pass rusher coming back in the Pac-12 this year, when that always helps to cover up the pass defense. But I really do think that coming into this year, they're going to improve defensively. And honestly, if they can just have an average at best pass rush defense with how dynamic the offense should be this year, I think that'll be good enough for them.
Right now, Washington plus 320 to win the Pac-12 title game. Oregon 3-1. Then you have USC, your favorites, at plus 190. Tremendous insights and analysis from Jordan Watkins joining us right now here on Sharp Money. Jordan, we appreciate the time. Check out his work for the Pac-12 Network as well as the Falcoholic on the writing side for the Atlanta Falcons. Really appreciate it, man. Thanks for stopping by.
No, thanks for having me. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're really looking forward to the start of the 2023 season.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.